My dog, Max, barks at the wall every day. He's a 4-year-old border collie who has been with me since he was a puppy. I adopted him after ending a long-term relationship, feeling lonely and in need of some company in my now empty home. I had heard about their intelligence, but Max truly surprised me. He learned my wake-up time and, once, during a severe peanut allergy episode, managed to press the emergency button on the phone. In a way, I owe my life to this little canine, which is why I became very concerned about what's been happening. 2 weeks ago, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed Max standing and staring at one of the walls at the end of the hallway, near the master bedroom. I thought maybe it was a bug or something of the sort. He stayed like that for a few good minutes, and when I called him, he ran to the bed. Yes, we sleep together. I assumed my initial thoughts were correct and dismissed any further speculation. At least, until the same time the next day. It was 10 p.m. and there was Max, ears perked up, looking at the wall. "Hey buddy, come here," I calmly said, patting the bed, calling him. However, this time he started barking. It wasn't the excited bark when he sees something interesting, or the bark at a passing stranger. It was something more primal, anxious, as if he were nervous about something behind the concrete layer. He stayed like that for about 2 hours until I finally managed to calm him down. This time, while petting his neck, I began to think about what it could be. The neighbor's house isn't attached to ours, and we live in a townhouse, so there are no other floors or apartments nearby. The next day, I decided to check the backyard, the outside of the wall he was barking at. Looking there, nothing seemed out of place, just the solid wall with its coating and the gutter drainage pipe. Perhaps it was a rat in the pipe. I bought rat poison and placed it in the tubing, making sure to keep Max away from it. However, for the next 3 days, nothing changed. I asked some neighbors if they had been dealing with pests lately, but the answer was always no. I decided to take Max to the vet to ensure everything was okay. Maybe it was a health issue. When we arrived, the doctor said he was in perfect health, and indeed, outside of those specific hours and away from the wall, Max was just like any other dog. I insisted a bit, telling the vet about all my failed guesses, and he suggested recording Max's barks to get a better understanding. Perhaps the intensity and frequency of the barks could provide some clues. When I got home, a few minutes before the usual time, I set up the recorder to capture the sounds. I was exhausted from a string of sleepless nights, so as soon as Max started barking, my head became heavy on the pillow, and to the sounds of his barks, I fell asleep. I woke up the next day to Max licking my hand, which hung off the bed. It was a Saturday, so I woke up lazily, slipped on my slippers, and, as I passed by the recorder, remembered to stop the recording and brought it with me downstairs. While frying eggs, I played the audio. Nothing out of the ordinary, just Max barking, and it continued for about 10 minutes perhaps. I was ready to turn off the audio to eat in peace when suddenly a bark sounded. And I know it sounds obvious. Wow, a bark in your dog's recording? Who could have expected that? But it wasn't Max. It was a muffled bark, more distant, as if it were coming from behind the wall, I suppose. They continued like that, Max reacting to the wall's bark by barking more, and they went on in this cycle for a good while. I asked Mr. Charles, my neighbor at the back, if he had heard any barking or if anyone in the neighborhood had recently adopted a dog. He denied it, saying he only heard Mags and I should check if there was anything wrong with my dog. I decided to stay awake that night and listen to this bark for myself. Precisely as Max started barking, those barks began. It was as if they were indeed right behind the wall, even though we were on the second floor. After a few minutes of this, I pounded on the wall with my fist. "Hey, enough already!" The bark turned into a low growl. "Go home, boy." I knocked again. The sound ceased completely. I waited a bit, and indeed, it didn't return. I called Max, and we lay down to sleep. However, I woke up in the middle of the night, startled by a loud noise coming from behind the door. Max, by my side, though still laying down, was alert, pointing his nose toward the noise. I cautiously removed the blanket from my body, and on tiptoes, I went to investigate. Looking through the keyhole, I saw there was nothing. I opened the door cautiously. The empty hallway stared back at me. Suddenly, again, the noise on the wall, a thud. But the worst part was what followed. It was a strange sound, like a bird perhaps, a parrot when it mimics speech, but with the voice of a larger animal. Something with a raspy throat. It began to mumble unintelligibly until I realized. Enough. It banged again. I froze. "Go home, boy." The syllables elongated, as if it didn't know when to stop. I didn't know what to do. Max started barking, and the thing continued in return. I called the police in a panic, saying someone was outside, banging on my wall, accompanied by an animal. They arrived in about half an hour, and I spent the whole time locked in my room, under the covers, with Max by my side, protecting the door. When they entered, I went out immediately, standing outside while a pair of officers went inside, and another circled the outside. As expected, they found nothing. I was already inside the house and began apologizing for the call. "No problem," the officer said. "We'll patrol the area. There might be someone around here, but this house," he banged on the wall, "is completely..." He stopped, banged again. "Have you done any recent renovations, sir?" I shook my head. "This wall, is it usually where the sound comes from?" I nodded. "If you'll allow me, sir." He took a small device and made a hole in the wall, expanding it a bit more, up to about 10 centimeters. He called me over to see, pointing to the inside of the wall, entirely hollow. The sound wasn't behind the wall, it was inside it. He started searching with the flashlight through the opening. "It's a real mess. Almost this entire..." He pointed the flashlight and focused on a spot. "Hey, you! Police!" He was seeing the intruder inside and used his radio to call for reinforcements. Noises echoed through the corridor. "He's escaping!" A thud sounded in the backyard. "Jumped out!" The officers rushed out the door in pursuit. I could still see, in the distance, a vaguely human-shaped, thin shadow running. The officer who was at the back and the one who saw the creature ran after it, while the others stayed with me at home. After an hour, they returned, saying the suspect had escaped, and he seemed genuinely sick. He was weird, pale, very thin, probably frogging, living rough for a while. We'll keep an eye out now. They bid farewell, saying they would be on standby in the neighborhood, in case the strange intruder decided to return. Everything had been left behind until today, during the night when I was finally falling asleep, and my front doorbell rang. I got up and stood in the hallway, waiting for a second ring. "Police," the voice of the officer who had attended to me before sounded. "I'm coming," I thought, wondering what it could be. Maybe they finally caught the lunatic. As I descended the stairs, Max was already at the door, standing, staring. "Boy?" I asked. Then he started barking, and the voice outside now echoed. "Hey, hey!" A bang. "Boy?" Its disguise unraveled. The horrifying voice, creeping with each syllable, made my spine shiver. "Hey!" It banged once more. I was about to call the police again when I decided to do something. Look. I wanted to know who was out there, who took away my peas, or what of him was left. I cautiously approached the peephole, instantly regretting it. There it was, an almost human figure. Almost. As my eyes adjusted, I could see more details, and by God, I almost vomited. Its skin wasn't its own. It wore skin on top, the face of the officer. Folds formed where there was excess, and the texture stretched where it lacked, as if it were trying to adjust the suit to its body. Some parts were missing, especially in the chest, where a trail of blood descended to the feet. I put my hand over my mouth to prevent a scream, followed by a vomit fountain. I called the police again. I don't know if they'll believe me. I don't know if they'll arrive before it does, so I'm leaving this note on my computer. If you are the police, please help. If you are a neighbor or friend and found this, don't trust me. He must have taken my skin. I just hope it ends well for both me and Max.